silent, vibrate, something like that. So it's not disruptive, that's the general plan.
Is this a meeting report?
Okay. Anyone have changes they wish to make to the agenda? We're not going, the health policy revision is not actually an action item because we voted on it at the last meeting. So it's just here as an FYI, it's included with your, it should be at your seat. Oh, all right, never mind then. I haven't, so, yeah, but we don't have to vote on it, so we'll just pass that one down. Anything else? All right then, if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Bernie, wanna do the honors?
Sure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor? Bill, anything? Nope. Okay. All right, has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes from December 14th?
Just one change. The next meeting is January 11, 2016.
Thank you, Norma. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended? Bernie and Megan, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, treasurer's report, Jeff.
Oh, thanks, Elmer. Evening, everybody. So we have the report through December 31st, 6 months, halfway through the fiscal year. You can see we got, well, I think the last meeting I mentioned that we've gotten our second big tax check, so you see we're loaded up on cash in the balance sheet, so we have enough to, we'll be getting one more check at the end of March or early April for the remaining 10%. So we're good to go on there funding wise. And on the profit and loss, salaries at midway through the year are within $102 under budget, so it's almost dead on. 366,400 compared to 366,580 budget. The books, I entered some more Baker and Taylor today, but I'm a little behind on the books, but assume that they'll be right on year to date, so it's really should be 42 versus 42. I don't think anything, during the month, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting because we had just paid it, but you could see in December we paid the retirement bill, which was fortunately almost 7,000, almost 8,000 under budget, which we had anticipated, so that was paid. We're done with that now for a year, and it was 8,000 under budget. I don't think anything else really stood out. As you can see, the professional fees are way over, which is what we anticipated. And the total expenses at the halfway point are $688,000 compared to 708, almost 709 budget, so 20,000 under budget. But then when you add back the books, we're pretty much right on or maybe slightly under budget year to date. And I guess that's about it. It was a pretty quiet month, especially with all the holidays and everything else going on. And I think there was an election in December too. I
Little
can't
tiny
remember,
thing.
but it was a pretty good month.
Any questions for Jack? Okay, may I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Jim, second? Norma, all in favor? Thank you. And thank you very much.
Thanks. Have a great
good
night,
night.
everybody. You too. Thanks, guys.
Okay, director's report.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a sort of quiet lull after the referendum. This time of year is quieter than the rest of the year usually. We had our first delayed opening on Tuesday, December 29th. We opened at noon. The biggest thing, I guess, that's going on are some of the things that had to do with the referendum have kind of fallen off. So the web designer that we hired to help us out to redo the page, etc., and do some of the other digital newsletter and the Facebook, that contract has expired, so we're moving things around a little bit. We have Katie in-house, she's going to be working on the webpage. I'm hoping to have the person that does our print newsletters work on the digital newsletters, and we'll probably try to bring the Facebook stuff back in-house. It's one of the things I think we need to talk about again at some point, is the possibility, I know it wasn't very popular last time around, but the possibility of perhaps cutting down on some of the print newsletters, keeping definitely the print newsletter that goes to everybody for the budget vote, but maybe just in terms of cost saving, because it is something like $16,000 a year to do 4 newsletters, the print, it does add up. So it's something to think about, especially that we seem to be having very good results with the digital newsletter, from what I've heard, just again anecdotally, people coming up and saying that they like getting the stuff kind of more consistently, but it's something we can talk about.
Can we talk about it now?
Sure.
Is there something on the website for people to elect to receive the digital and not the paper?
We don't have that now, but I can add it to the list of things we can put up there, sure.
You could add my name to it.
Okay,
To not receive a paper copy.
to
Yeah.
just get the,
Do we have a database that we work off of, or
Yes.
is there like an easy way that we could make that happen? Like if we were.
well, we would probably just, for the digital, we would have to use the names we collected for the referendum, the 3,000 some that are
Okay.
in our list. I don't know, I mean, we could make an effort again to try to get more people, and maybe in the print ones that go out, if you'd like to start,
Yeah.
start to receive just e-newsletters. But I think the people that we have on that 3,400 or whatever are probably the core people that are gonna respond to what we have going on here, right now anyway. That may change as we move forward to a new building.
You could put a blurb about it in the next newsletter
Right,
as well. Maybe send an email.
Yeah, we've done a few on the,
Subject line.
we've collected actually a lot that way. On the last couple of newsletters or 3 newsletters that went out, we had people, we invited people to write, to either write to us or drop something off to let us know they wanted to be added to our list. So we did hit them a few times, but we can, we can keep going. So it's, something to think about.
Are you gonna be prepared to, when folks say, yes, I want to go online, how are you gonna let them know? Are they gonna have to go online and actually physically do it, or are they gonna drop their name off?
We
What's-
probably could do it
We should have a
both ways.
plan before we
Yeah.
ask people.
Yeah, we have, over the course of the last few months leading up to the referendum, we had a few different methods of collecting more. I don't know if we're pretty much fished out for the time being, because we did do a lot of collecting through various avenues of people that were interested in just getting the digital, for the time being. But we could continue that. I think we have a pretty good database now, but there's always, could always try to find ways to add more to it.
But just have a plan in place in terms of people come into the library. Oh, I saw this in the last newsletter. I want to get it e-news or whatever.
Sure, yeah, we
Just-
could have, like Keith said, we could have something on the site itself, so you would just log in and you could
Mhm.
add your information, and then we could also have something, people that just wanna fill something out, we can add them manually.
And for folks who don't have a computer, that they would still be getting the printed copy.
Yeah, we
Senior
probably,
citizens or who may not.
we
It's
could,
opt out.
right, okay,
Right.
we could,
That's all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
so,
What if instead of opting out of it, we asked people to opt in?
To what, the paper?
The print one.
That's the standard, the print, so having them opt out makes more sense.
You think so?
Because people have been relying on it for decades.
Yeah, but then it's gonna go to thousands of people who toss it in the bin too.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
we could probably,
The
maybe
newspaper
we
does
could
that too.
Yeah.
convene a PR, the same PR, folks that worked on the referendum to work with us here in the library to come up with some ideas on how we wanna do that. Because I'm sure you guys have ideas that we don't have. But I was impressed by the response that those digital emails, that those digital newsletters received.
And pretty good open rate too, right?
Yeah, it was good. This is tiny. Jack and I are looking at some. We've had a couple of people come by offering various contracts to bring down our cost of electric. So we're looking into a few things. There's one here that looked, yeah, that's 12-month, and it would save us 2,000. I'm so careful about it now because I've been burned more than twice these things. So I just, as long as you make sure that you can get out of it, 12 months, that it doesn't alter once you've signed, once the ink is dried,
Did you see in the article on the record about the,
predatory practices of.
well, it was basically they were saying that, I guess it was a statewide study, and people that were in these other companies, on average, were paying more than
Yeah,
the
you
ones
have
that
to
were
be.
with the utilities.
Yeah. We've done both here, and it's Bernie helped us set up a situation a while back that worked out in our favor. Wow, that's kind of risen over time, and so every once in a while it seems you have to be careful about how you do it, but you have to kind of cycle out and shift to
Right.
another one. You have to kind of be on
Right,
top
probably
of it.
most people, they go for a cheaper one and then
It's-
they ignore it.
That's what happens,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That's I think what they sort of bank
And
on
they
that.
they generally send like one email and saying, "Hey, your contract's expiring."
Yeah.
Silence. It's like- so yeah, unless you miss that one email, your rate can spike considerably. So.
Also, I spoke with Robert Schultz about the options facing us for a foundation, and in his recommendation, he thought it was our best bet was just to go with the community foundation rather than try to set one up ourselves. Partly because of the 501c process, 501c status process, and partly just because it's a little bit of it's you have to create a board for it, you have to have people on top of it, and if they're already set up, he said he looked at their financials, he was impressed with the with what he saw there, with their returns on, and it looked like, that was our best bet, would just go to the professionals and have them handle it for whatever.
Well, people recognize it too. It's
Right.
something that they're familiar with, and People for People has just switched over to that.
Okay.
There's an article about that a month or so ago. They decided that was the best way to go.
So I think, Bernie, you were gonna talk to Elizabeth?
Yeah, I called her today actually, and she's going to email just a draft agreement, basically. The only thing she wanted to know is if we had the $5,000 to start it,
Mhm.
which I said, yeah, we can get the $5,000. If I don't know how much Gilbane was going to donate, but we can start with
Mhm.
something out of the 24K that we reserve for
Mhm.
capital improvements. We can lace it with that if need be, and what we're going to call it in general. And it's a draft agreement either way, so any of that can be changed. But I told her Goshen Library Foundation. How's that?
Yeah.
And then we'll change it later if need
Okay.
be. So yeah, she'll
And
send that over.
Historical Society.
Next couple. Well, the foundation. Yeah.
Goshen
So we'll talk
Library
about that too. Yeah,
Historical Society.
that's what I mean.
The other thing, big change, January 1st, 2016, the laws regarding voting machines. I know that Robert Hubsher, the executive director of RCLS, has been collecting information on what this means to the various member libraries, but he hasn't gotten back. I saw him last week, and I'm waiting for some information from him. I know Bernie has looked into it. Carol's looked into it. I guess when I finish this, Carol, I'll put that on if you want to give us what you found out.
Looked into what?
And this is the Have a Vote Act. This is the machines.
What have you looked into?
Well, just whether and how we proceed, whether we can use paper ballots.
Well, we can use paper ballots according to that.
Yeah.
What is the downside?
Well, according to Robert,
The
according
time it takes to count.
yeah, I'm all for paper ballots. According to Robert Hubsher, and you disagree with what you found out, but Robert Hubsher said that when he spoke to the Orange County Election Board, they said that you actually have to still purchase those. Yes,
That's the
and
problem.
that's what
It's
they
a dollar-
use for.
well, a
That's
dollar
the problem,
exactly.
because we
So-
have to buy one,
Anyway,
they're $1 a piece for every registered voter, it's thousands and
Why just
thousands
sell
of
the purchase
thousands.
it?
Well, this is what this is sort of.
Well, why don't we get to the
Up
report?
in the air still, yeah, because Bernie's looked into it, and he's actually gone to several libraries in New York State that are using paper ballots, and they're not using those. So I think there's not
Yeah, okay.
agreement here. There's a sort of skirmish happening about how this is going to play out. It makes no sense to me that if you're trying to save money by using paper ballots, you have to go and buy the.
No,
So anyway,
Print
it's
them
one of
out
those.
ourselves
we
on
didn't
a
hear that
Xerox
from our
machine.
local
No,
board.
I don't know. This came from
I think
Robert Hubsher.
Part,
but
part of the issue, and it sounds like even with, well, you probably talked to them more recently, but when I talked briefly to them, I forget the gentleman's name over there. It wasn't the woman.
Green.
Yeah, I think it was David Green. Thank you. The indication was, and he wasn't affirmative on anything, but the indication was you want to keep the ballots consistent. That's the issue. You don't want to disenfranchise anybody who can't use the ballots, or if there's going to be any beef with the ballots. So they would help with the ballots, designing them so that they would not have any problems. But now it sounds like they're suggesting that, well, you should just go and use the pre-printed ones is the last.
Suggesting.
The most
Okay,
recent thing I
so
heard, yeah.
suggestion.
But the problem with the pre-printed ones is that you have to buy them in the thousands. That's,
Yes.
because
Yes.
in case
And
you
we-
wanna get,
Right.
we'd much rather have them have, 500 printed out, because we're never gonna have that many votes unless we're doing it some type of massive budget vote. And then if we need 100 more, we print another 100 on the laser printer.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, at a cost of a penny a page or something.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the
Send it
things
down.
that that we have in place right now is our absentee ballots, and they are indeed paper ballots that have been approved and have been used by us for years. So, and they were originally drawn up by a lawyer for our use, and they could be the same exact ballot. In fact, when we hold our votes, even using the machines, the paper ballot is available for people to look at, and if they chose to want to use that instead of going inside the booth, they could. So we would have an argument to say that our ballot, as it exists today, is a legal, proper ballot, and therefore why should we change it to go to a more costly manner? But that's just something I wanted to talk with the lawyer and let him know that we've been doing it this way, so, what is the purpose of the change? If the purpose of the change is just so that we would be spending more money, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And they were legal yesterday, they were legal a month ago,
Right.
so
And-
what makes them not legal now? I'm not sure.
And we would have to have a quantity of paper ballots equaling 100% of our
Probably
voters.
10% over our last vote,
Okay.
which would take about a ream of paper.
Okay.
It's nothing.
No, but if we use,
Yeah.
if we went
But
to
if
the
we
Board
went
of
with the-
Elections
with
and
the
used
Board
their
of
machine,
Elections,
yeah.
wouldn't you
Yeah.
have to purchase one for each?
That was originally if the scanner was used, they would want us to have enough
Right.
ballots to cover every possible voter.
It's a scanner option or paper, right? Those are the two.
Yes, that according to the ruling as I'm reading it, we're still gonna be talking to the lawyer and see how he is interpreting it.
Do we know
whether
what
he
it-
can help us with that.
Do we know what it costs to rent the scanner or whatever it is that we have to do from the Board of Elections?
We don't pay a fee for it, but we definitely could not house it here. We don't
It's too
have
big,
any place in the building that would take it. There's space required around it and privacy for you to fill out your ballot, and then you step up to the scanner. The scanner also has an area where someone with a wheelchair would come up to it and be able to use it. And because of that, they need a huge, area. We would have to go to the school if that was or someplace like that, in order to hold our vote if we were forced to go to a scanner. I think we could do a paper ballot election very well. I was kind of hoping to talk with Jim and see if our friend Jim Levine could build us a box.
Levine,
We'll
yeah.
get some,
Ballot
know,
box.
some-
Ballot box.
Oh,
But
to put,
honestly, it was my thoughts that we could do it better than we did our previous vote with the labor machines, because there's more room in the room, in the local history room, when those two machines are not in there.
Sure.
That we have the ample space in order to do it there. And I spoke with the Krishes, and they said that they're pretty excited about doing a paper ballot. They're okay with that. They just wanted to let it be known that the tally might take into the next day.
Sure.
That sort of thing, which I think we would be okay with. Then, but it's pretty reasonable, and if we think about how we have struggled to maintain the vote here, within this building, to let people know they come to the library to vote on library issues. If we had to change and go to another location to use the scanners, and then when we do move 2 years from now or 3 years from now, we would be changing again, over to that location. It's kind of my thought that if we move to paper ballot here, we could continue paper ballot here until we move, and we could even take paper ballot into the new building, even though we would have more room at that point and be able to use a scanner if we were not forced to use the scanner, money certainly would keep us using a paper ballot even over there.
Yeah.
So the continuity of how we do things would remain, and I think that's kind of good for our voters and their understanding of what they're actually voting for, you know, a library issue.
Thanks, Sarah.
Anyhow, we have more research to do on that, but the 86 days
Okay.
to the next vote. Who's counting?
Okay, anything else?
I've been in touch with Ben Gailey. A lot of what's happening now regarding the building, it's sort of out of our hands. Yeah, it seems, you know, Ben Gailey, the lawyers, talking to the school representatives, talking to the architects, talking to the engineers, and they're sort of working out the, you know, the contracts and ironing out some of the language. So I called them on Friday to make sure there was nothing we were missing for tonight, no action items. No, it's all sort of still being worked out. I did talk with Bob Miller from the school. Actually, he stopped by yesterday. He's concerned with getting the information he needs for their budget in due time. But Ben Gale is aware of that, and they're working it out. So I'm sure we'll get them what they need to be able to plan ahead. I'm hoping to arrange a meeting with Robert Hubsher, Stephen Hofer, our building committee, and Paul and Megan. We can talk some more about this later, but before the next board meeting, to have RCLS take a look at the plans such as they are right now, just to give them a chance to, you know, give their input, advice, or whatever on what we're doing. Jack and I are signed up. I can't believe it's this time of year already for the annual report workshop hosted by RCLS at the end of this month. That's when Jack and I have to basically quantify everything the library's done over the past 12 months in terms of programming, money, circulation, et cetera, et cetera. It comes around fast these days. I've been going to all the meetings, answer Directors Association and Directors Association Executive Committee meetings. Friends have a program coming up on trolleys in Orange County to be held at the Main Street School Building Saturday, February 6th. And we'll video record it again as we did with Mr. Connor's last presentation on Goshen history. And the building, as far as the building is concerned, we had C.R. Wolf here for a minor repair on the boiler, and we had to have Mike's Lock come in to replace a cylinder on the back door lock that's probably been there since 1977. So not too bad for winter time.
No.
I think that pretty much sums it up. Unless you have any questions?
You made reference to the Noah Webster.
Yes, I'm sorry. We've been invited to participate in the Noah Webster celebration, I guess, of his life at his time here in Goshen. So
Is it some anniversary or something?
it must be, yeah. I did. Actually, I put the gentleman in contact with Eleanor, so she's working on it with him. Sounds interesting.
Eleanor, okay.
Yeah. I think your son is involved in there, yeah.
Is that right?
Is that right?
You
Grew up on Webster Avenue.
I know, really, it's fitting.
The new building, we've talked about having an citizens advisory committee.
I was just about to ask you about that, yes.
Yeah. So I think we need to formally decide if we're gonna do that. I think we should do it.
I think it's a
And,
good idea.
It's only advisory, and we know
Can't hear.
one particular
Jim?
issue.
Could you speak up a little, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's an advisory committee, and so this final decision would be made by the board. And we know that the one particular issue that Ed Connor and
Mhm.
others have raised has to do with the amount of space devoted to the historical committee.
Right.
So, do we need a motion at some point to create that committee? What's the procedure?
That's a good question, because it's not actually, it wouldn't be a committee, it would be volunteers from the
That would-
community.
I guess
so-
you'd have a liaison that would report back to the board about their,
And it would probably be a member of either the new building committee or community resources or
Mhm.
one of each. But I don't think we would need to officially, because we're
Well-
not forming a real committee. we're
It
forming-
wouldn't be a standing committee, it'd be what's called an ad hoc
Mhm.
committee.
Right.
It's created for a certain project and
Right, but it's not created from board members, so I don't know that we would have to make a motion and vote on it. I think we would just have to, I don't actually know, but it doesn't sound like we would.
What do we advise, We asking them to advise us, huh, again, like, the
Just
holidays,
move
I'm in a fog.
That's public opinion on the,
Bias.
just people who know, and it's not just random
Input.
members of the public, it would be people like Ed Connor and, right, isn't this what we discussed last time?
Well, I think if we open it up, we need to invite people that have a concern to
Right,
express an interest in it, and we could then see how many people come forward. If it's only at 4 or 5 people, then we could say, okay, why don't you guys meet and,
so maybe what we should do then is have a public interest meeting and invite people and see where it goes from there. If we get 40 people who show up, and honestly, because we don't really know what we're doing
Right.
yet. We're creating a committee, but we don't even know who'd be interested. So if we create this, if we have like a public, who's interested in giving input on the new library, you know.
Input, but the input is within certain parameters. Number
Exactly.
one, the money has been voted on,
right.
Yeah,
9.3 million, that's all there is,
right,
and 20,600 square feet, that's all she wrote, so
right.
they're
Well-
basing on.
Well, we have a conceptual plan, and I
Right.
think what they're saying is that they would like to suggest some, one or more revisions in the conceptual plan before
Okay.
it actually goes to the final drawings.
Drawing.
But
Yeah.
when are we to get the final drawings? I thought it
Oh,
would be soon.
it's a while away. He
Yeah.
actually said we were open for bids until January of 2017.
Well,
so-
bids for what? That's
For the construction and,
But we're talking
right,
the
but we're not gonna
architectural
get the
plans.
architectural plans probably until the summer, I would think, if maybe that soon, I
Yeah.
don't know if it would be that soon.
Yeah.
We're talking 6 months at least,
Well, they gave us a
But-
new,
but I
an
think-
updated,
yeah.
I think
but-
that's a good
list.
point, though, that we should find out from the architects at what point would they have to have, if there's gonna be a suggested change of some sort,
Mhm.
what's the deadline on us giving them that?
Well,
Yeah,
we're having,
that's-
we're arranging a meeting between the new building committee and the architects and the representatives from RCLS. I think that has to happen first, and then we could decide from there, cause that, we would have a better idea
Right.
of when, cutoff dates would be for things. And also, I think a lot of the concerns that Robert and, Stephen, thank you, would bring up are probably, would head off a lot of the concerns the public would have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, some people have concerns that are, I don't wanna be dismissive, but kinda silly. And there's not a lot we could do about them, you know, and people worry about, I don't know, there's just odd things that can, well, what about, you know, really you're worrying about this now?
Well, discussion about whether the children's room should be upstairs versus downstairs, and
Yeah.
we've heard it both ways, and
Yeah,
RCLS is gonna weigh in, and they've got a view of all the libraries
right.
in the region, and,
Yeah.
and what has or hasn't worked in some cases, you know, it could be that one definitely works, but only if you do this, you know, so.
Yeah, and it's just,
So
I'm,
we'll have more answers once we talk to them.
right, because they're
More
actual
responses.
library experts
Yeah.
too, and the general public necessarily is not. We would have, you know, Ed Connor's interested in the Historical Society, so his focus would be on that, you know. So each person we talk to, like, you know, the assistant director, her office got to be this big, and then, you know, if everybody got what they wanted, the library would be 4 times the size we originally planned, because everybody's focused on their own thing. So I don't know how realistic, and how productive it would be. So I think we should meet with RCLS and the architects first, and then just, you know, from there, I think we'd have a better idea of what kind of committee meeting group we would wanna have.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that's the,
I would think that Paul May's company
I think so.
would know of these issues.
absolutely, cause this is what
Prior
it
to
does, right.
having drawn up the initial conceptual
Yeah.
drawing.
And there was also, again, a time hack, what's the last possible week we can tell him, no, the bathroom should be over here, no, the chair should be, you know, that kind of stuff.
You also
The
have a
building-
Chamber of Commerce breakfast coming up, right?
That's the 20th, yes.
20th, so you'll get some input from, you have people, you'll find out who's interested in
I get input in
that.
ShopRite, yes.
But there might be some people who haven't
Well, this is
actually
what I mean by,
really
there's,
are
you know,
real
we
concerned
gotta be
about
careful
something,
when we
yeah.
have a community group, you know, people who come up, oh, you're buying peppers, you know, and then I get an earful about something else. But, it's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, it's nice that people are interested, but at the same time, how much of it do we wanna spend time entertaining? And how much of it's actually gonna be productive and useful, because there's so much we already have to do.
This has been worked on for the past year
And
or
yeah,
so,
and before they
there's
even
been
came up with the
opportunity.
concept, we had a couple of public meetings and opportunity for people to put input, to give their input, before Paul even put pencil to paper, so. I mean, it's not, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I'm just saying we should do this first. Does that make sense?
We kinda have done it.
The new building committee, I believe I'm on it.
Mhm.
Yes, it's
Who
you
else?
and me, and I think it's
Ernie.
Ernie.
Mhm.
Ernie, okay.
Yeah,
All right, so you'll let us know when that meeting.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, committee reports. Oh, well, let's talk about the new building, because that's been the star of the show for a while. Let's see. Well, I was talking to Ben, and that's why we're not voting on the budget this evening, because he has to work out with the architect and the construction manager and the engineer and some bunch of other people what our bond anticipation note amount is going to be. So that we can submit everything together to the school district so that they can put their budget together. So that we can anticipate what we're going to have to pay people before we actually get the bond. So everybody knows what I'm talking about. So we have to factor in all the expenses we're going to have for fiscal year 16-17 before we actually apply for the bond. And then once we apply for the bond, we pay that off. Jack was having lunch with the executives at Orange County Trust, where we have one of our accounts, and they offered us a line of credit, which would also be useful, you know, because I don't know if we underestimate the amount we need for the bond anticipation note, or before we actually get that, which wouldn't be until the beginning of the fiscal year. So between now and then, if we need to pay for something we don't have the money for, we could, you know, so he's getting the details about that, and when I have it, I'll let everyone know.
We should have it by Friday.
Yeah, I think so
Spoke to him
too.
today, so.
Right. Is there anything else about the new building that we have to discuss?
Don't think so.
No, I think that was it too.
What was the feeling on the budget that we would vote on, budget increase we would vote on is for operating expenses for this
The
building?
operating expenses for this building, yes.
So how would that impact anything that we do with the bond anticipation note, which would be for the other building?
It would have nothing to do with it, except that we have to just let them know all of the amounts that we're gonna ask for. So he said instead of doing one vote and then next month having a whole different discussion and doing another, you know, vote on the bond anticipation note, we still have plenty of time from the February meeting to the actual budget vote, but we're not cutting it too close to just discuss all of that at once.
So we just wanna do like a financial forecasting
Kind of, yeah.
for the next couple of years,
Well, at least a year and a half, so.
including the operating expenses for this building
Right,
as well.
at the last meeting, Jack had worked up a 0 increase, 1% and 2%.
Yeah.
Right, so we're gonna make a decision on that based on what we got from him, and that we will vote on officially and make that the budget people vote on in the spring. But I don't have the numbers now, and neither does Ben yet, for how much everything's gonna cost over the next year and a half. So until we know that, we can't ask for a bond anticipation note. And of course, Robert Miller wants that information as soon as possible. So I probably will have it in another, 2 weeks. So we will have it for the February meeting, which is what, the 8th, I think. February 8th. Yeah, it's right here.
And the bond anticipation note, that impacts their collecting taxes for us?
Yeah, they have to put it in, yes, the public already voted on the, right, so that's all, they don't have to vote for an approval or anything, but they have to have it as a line item in their budget, so they have to know what the amount is. And in order for them to know what the amount is, we have to know and we have to ask for it.
So it's just the impact on their budget that
Exactly,
they're concerned.
yeah,
Okay.
but our tax levy is also something that has to go on their books somehow, because they collect all of that money for us, even though,
It's
you know, what's that?
even though it's separate.
Right, it's separate, but it's ours.
There's no impact on their budget.
Right, there's no actual impact on their budget, but it does have to be represented, and we don't have the numbers yet, so instead of giving them pieces, we're gonna do it all next month and give them the whole thing.
We have been having, in effect, new building expenses included in our budget under professional services.
Sure,
So that will end, we can actually reduce that line,
yes, probably, yeah.
because basically we have two sets of books. We'll have a set of books related to
The capital
new building
account,
expenses being funded by the new money that we're going to get,
Mhm.
and then we'll have our current budget
Right.
in the books on that.
If you look in the, I think it's in the treasure, it's usually in the treasurer's report, we have an account that's just capital, for capital funds, and that's where the money from the bond anticipation note will sit. And that's where the money from the, I guess the bond too, if we actually handle any of that, that's where that will also sit.
Yeah, but that capital fund is for work being done on this building, in a sense you might,
There's nothing in it right now. And it's,
where is that money that we have, like 25,000?
I think that's just in our regular accounts, because, I actually don't know.
Yeah, we're keeping it separate just on paper,
It's
but
just on paper, but
because
it's in
when,
the same account.
when the state came down and
Because-
said,
All right,
oh,
so as
well,
long
you've
as
just bumped your budget by $25,000,
Right,
that's
so
all
when
we
they
care
said
about.
that to us, we just put it all together.
Yeah.
Because that also, it affected our budget threshold, and it, oh, the phrase is gone, sorry. Anyway.
But we just put it on the building expenses, or roughly what's
Right,
the
well,
building
that is
expenses
where we
line.
put it as a line item.
Yeah, so we bumped that by $24,000 each year now.
Yeah, I don't
Is
see
it the
it on-
reserve?
No. Yeah, it's not, I think it's,
Not-
yeah, we
not
had,
the
we had,
reserve, no.
well, we had a.
Not building repairs?
No. Anyway, we had, we have an account with nothing in it at the moment where we put money for the last building project, right? All the donations went into that one account, so we still have the account, we just haven't put anything in it.
So the bond anticipation note will not be paid off for over 2 years.
Right,
Okay.
yes, and,
We still will have our TAN for,
right, the operation of the library is separate from the
Right.
money for the new building. And the money for the new building has all already been voted on, so it's just a matter of bookkeeping and keeping track of what we get and who we get it from.
so how much can we reduce our professional services line from what it is? We bumped it up in order to.
And we would
deal with-
actually, oh, I'm sorry, this is what I was thinking, we would have to reimburse the library for the expenses we already put out that were for the new building, that we took out of our operation expenses, that really, you know what I mean, for,
Well, can we
Yeah.
do that? Can we?
I think we can, yes, that was my understanding when I talked to Ben, that we could do that. Because he asked me how much money we had set aside, because that would affect how much money we could borrow for bond's anticipation note. I said we live pretty close to the bone, that we were using professional services money to pay the architect and pay this other thing. I said, and I'm assuming we can reimburse it because they're building expenses, and he told me that we
The budget,
could.
yeah.
I don't know what the actual
Okay, so-
details are, but,
So Jack needs to make a list of all the expenses that have been,
right,
Yeah, he's
Contribute.
coded, right.
okay, and then
Right.
we can
Then
put
we
that in
can-
as a revenue source,
sure, and it's a reimbursement.
one-time revenue source reimbursement.
For the expenses that we
Right.
already spent on the building that should have come from the bond. Right. Right,
Didn't he-
'cause when the
didn't
bond
Jack-
actually comes in, we would pay back the bond's anticipation note, which would also be the same sort of expenses.
Didn't Jack suggest that we put whatever funds we get from the bond into the Orange County Trust checking account, the one that has a penny in it,
Right.
Yeah, that might be it.
To keep
yes,
it-
that might be
keep it separate,
Yes.
separate.
Yes. Okay. Anything else from the new building? All right. Physical resources, how's this building doing? I mean, we talked
Just
about
what I
it.
mentioned, yeah.
The doorknob and the, okay. Anything else, physical resources? I know, it's Christmas and New Year's, we didn't do anything.
No,
And it hasn't snowed, so we haven't really had to pay.
I keep looking at the condition of Hill Street whenever I'm driving over here,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
little puddle on the side there. But the DPW's been, or whatever we call them, has
Yeah.
been pretty prompt in filling the pothole
Oh,
as
yeah.
it gets lower. So
Bigger and bigger. And community resources, and aside from the discussion we had about the newsletter, is there anything else?
When is the next newsletter? When do you need an article?
I'm not
Budget.
sure. I'll talk with Michelle tomorrow and I'll let you know.
Oh, that's the budget one, right?
No, it's
Yes.
spring, what, March? Big middle March, is that when we send it out?
You probably, early
Yeah.
middle March, yeah.
Emily, do you want to write the article or you want me to write it? You gonna write?
Even. Did you write it last time? You
I
did.
wrote the one for
The-
You wrote the one
the
for the
vote.
referendum.
the referendum.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll take the next one.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
No problem.
Thanks. Okay, human resources, we finalized the wording for the
Oh.
health insurance, where we, at the last meeting, just to refresh everyone's memory, we allowed, library employees who were covered by our health insurance policy to opt out and instead go with Medicare if they were old enough and eligible for Medicare. And we voted on it and approved it at the last meeting, and then the new wording is here. If I'll just pass it around if you want to take a look at it. The red is the new wording. Other than that, is there anything else? Home and Human Resources, that's it, right? How's the Sunshine Committee doing, Jim?
We
Is it
haven't had
flush?
any expenditure recently.
Okay.
I think we are short one $20 contribution, and we're in pretty good shape.
Who's
It's not
delinquent?
you, is
Is it me?
it?
Is it you? Oh.
But we're not in any need of
We're not in
cash,
dire
so
crunch for
panic.
Okay.
And the Friends, and we were talking about
The
it-
trolley.
Trolley, yeah.
trolley.
About meetings, upcoming meetings?
There was a question about that came up. I guess you actually asked the
Yeah.
question, and Laura indicated that probably not until March.
Yeah, this is the weather.
Usually,
Mhm.
Florida snowbirds.
you know, we're
Yeah.
Sunshine Friends or something.
There you go.
So,
Okay.
Junior Friends are going to meet in about a week. Still trying to plan another event. And I was thinking maybe they could get involved with that Noah Webster thing.
Okay.
So I'll talk to Eleanor, see what's going on.
Okay. Is there any unfinished business?
Not that I know.
Not that I know of either. Anybody can think of anything I may have overlooked?
Just a comment, I know you're going to the breakfast, for the,
Chamber.
yes.
Yes.
If you can just pop an email to the rest of us so that we know, because I was asked about it at a local business
Sure.
recently, and I thought, I don't know anything about that,
Oh,
just as a matter of,
The
Yes.
one that's in the
FYI.
newspaper
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
what's in the newspaper?
Yeah, I got home and the kids said,
about the
"Are you
meeting.
going to be there for the?" I'm like, "What breakfast?"
Yes.
Oh, there was a big write-up in the paper.
Yeah.
Well, there's not a big write-up.
Just
on the-
it was on the front page.
Front
Front
page.
page. That's a big write-up, it's a front,
It's big
just
enough.
Well,
ahead
I
of
don't
time,
remember a
if
picture
you could
of
just
it.
send
Yeah, we
us
just had a really
a,
rough week
an
of
email
business.
as an FYI courtesy kind of thing, thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that.
What's going on at that meeting?
We're just, thank you for voting for us, here's our plan.
Yeah.
It's kind of a rehash of what we did leading up
Yeah.
to the referendum. I think that's why none of us made much of a big deal about it, cause it's like old hat now, we've done it a
Right.
half dozen times. So it was just going to be a more upbeat version. We're not begging for votes this time, we're
Yeah.
grateful for the votes this time,
Yeah.
so I don't, so sorry you were overlooked. Okay, so no unfinished business, just talking about the healthcare.
Did we get a copy of the checks last time?
Yes.
So we did,
Mhm.
yes.
We did?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm thinking we should probably have that every month.
Every month?
Yeah, I mean, because if it's no big deal for him to print out the warrant list,
Mhm.
it'd be good for us to be aware of everything, even if we don't discuss it or approve it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
He wants to, we got the printout of the checks written for the previous, well, we have a quarter, I think is what we had last time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So he wants to do it once a month for each meeting,
just so that all the board members
previous
are
month,
aware of.
what the expenses were and to whom they were written. And we already talked about the health policy update. Yep.
We're gonna continue that with the new building as well, that as expenses go, that we
So you wanna,
kept up to date,
once we start paying for actual things for the new building, we should have like a separate
yeah.
accounting each month of what we've spent on the
Yeah,
architects.
if it's an easily generated list, yeah.
Yeah, sure, I
Just to,
but since it's gonna be separate money, we want separate accounting for it,
Yes.
yes.
They had an issue with the New City Library
Okay.
where not enough people were reviewing the warrants,
Hmm.
and somebody embezzled money down there,
Well,
a lot of money down there, and that's why it's on my mind now.
well, we have actually quite a few controls in place.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, we do, just because we do,
That was New City that happened?
yeah.
yeah, we have quite a few controls in place. It's actually quite difficult for Jack to abscond with our money and go to Tahiti, so.
Well, yeah, but it was, I mean, the person that was doing it, they were clever enough to actually create like an account that had like 2 letters transposed, so whoever was reviewing the stuff actually didn't even pick up that it was a separate company, and
Oh, that happened to me with credit card theft. Yeah.
so.
Wow, they're in jail, right?
I
hope so.
expect so, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They're headed there.
My
So, yeah,
son-
the more
I have a
people-
son-in-law who's on the library board in Pearl River, and they go over it every month. They're very close to New City, so they probably are.
They're probably really raised up on it now.
Yeah, it couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
And every time we review it here, people have questions about what is
Yeah.
this, what is that, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, that's
Because we
good.
don't know all the
Well, it's better to
companies.
have seven sets of eyes looking at it instead of just one, too. But, yeah, that would be hard for me. Okay, anything else? Any other new business that I don't know about?
So,
Anybody got anything else they wanna discuss?
maybe the building committee, we could meet for just a minute before you guys go.
Sure,
Okay.
Okay.
sure. Okay, proposed agenda items for next month's meeting. I mean, we're gonna talk about the budget and the bonds anticipation
Yes.
note. Hopefully, we will have had our meeting with the architects by then, because Megan's
Yes.
due any day now, right?
That's what
Yeah, she's, when is she due? Beginning of February?
yeah.
Wow. Beginning or middle of February, I think she's due right around the next board
Yeah,
meeting.
you're right.
Yeah, so we wanna meet with her before then. Yeah, oh, and we will have to, because the,
Yes.
regardless
Okay.
of what we pick for our budget, we will have to sign the waiver to exceed the tax cap, cause it's so very low, this is 0.73 or something.
I meant to put that for tonight.
Yes, thank you.
I'll get it.
Okay. All right, anything else? Yes, Carol?
Just, the, paper ballot or not would be a subject next month.
Yes,
And-
okay.
And the
Yeah.
date of the vote, as well as the chairperson and the,
So all of
For
the
the
stuff
vote.
pertaining to the vote,
Yes.
including paper ballots for next
voting
month.
interest things.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
Whose
All right.
terms are up on the board?
Norma
And Keith,
and Keith, yeah, I think it's Norma and Keith this year.
because I go with Melanie, right?
Really?
Yeah, it's me and Bernie. It's me, Bernie, and Jim, right? Aren't the three of us together?
No,
I know
Jim was
with-
in with three.
Oh, I know there's
Okay.
three at one point, I thought.
Yeah.
So no, it's me and Bernie. are-
6 years? Is this the 6th year? Is it really?
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, Nick.
I remember that first phone call from Jim Tarvin here.
Don't blame me.
Back in the day.
Oh, I can blame you.
You got that call too.
Oh, back in the day.
Do we will need to make a decision on paper versus machine?
I believe that we should be making that at the next meeting as we're
Making it
closing into
official.
the 75 days to the vote.
Right, well,
And that would probably be part of our legal notice.
will you be sending us an email letting us know prices so that we can be thinking about this ahead of time in
I-
terms
I
of?
would- I will keep you informed soon as I learn from the lawyer and the other powers,
Yeah.
What our options
what's
are.
possible.
Yeah,
I'll inform you.
Thank you.
okay. Anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay, privilege of the floor, any questions? Yes, Bill?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to the item about the school budget and the bond that will be carried and what I call a pass-through.
Sure.
You'll recall at the meeting where some of us attended with the school board on that fateful day.
That delightful morning, yeah, I remember that.
Yes. Martha raised this thing about, what might happen with the vote, and I was unclear that day what she was driving at.
I still am unclear what
But
she's
I
driving.
got a little clarification. Anyway, her point at the end that I took away was she wanted to ask for our support when the school budget vote comes up, that we do whatever we can to make it clear that this bond is somehow not tied to the school budget. You know what I'm saying, it's,
Sure.
as I say, it's a pass-through. Anyway, and I've talked to Matt about this, she was under the impression that the voters could actually vote the school budget down based on the inclusion of the bond referendum for our library. Matt has checked with the lawyer.
In fact, yeah, I was just gonna mention that he is looking into it. He said off the bat when I asked him that that's not the case, and he
Right.
sees where the confusion is, but he
Right.
promised to get me the actual verbiage from either,
Yeah.
the opinion, and I'll have to check with
Yeah.
him. He sort of, it fell off the.
Okay,
But he off the top of his head, he said, I understand where she's coming from, but that's not
Right.
the case, and
That's
I
not how it works.
don't remember the mechanics behind it, but she was sort of making an analogy with something
understand.
else that can happen
Yeah.
with the school budget, which can't happen in our case, but he said he would try to get back to us with
yeah.
a piece of, law.
Okay, so here's my point. If Martha Bogart is confused, there are liable to be people in the community that are confused.
Uh-huh.
And I just wanted to say, you know, whatever we can do to clarify that that's in there and nothing that the voters can do is gonna change that. They will be voting on the other portions of the school budget, but
Right.
having nothing to do with the library. And
Right.
I don't know exactly how to get that done, but I think it's worthwhile considering.
The newsletter,
Yeah, right.
the
There you go.
newsletter will
There you go.
include, you know, this is what the library budget is, this is what the bond is,
Right.
this is,
Right.
you know, once again, we wanna inform the public that the library operating budget and the bond are completely separate entities from the school budget
Right.
that you will be asked to vote on whatever their date is.
Right.
But the newsletter, we should have it very, very clear. That way we
Yeah.
do as we
Yeah,
said we
they
would.
may show it as line items, but they're not
Right.
votable. So-
Right, right.
Carol, do you know when their vote is? Or do you have an idea of when
Sorry.
about the school vote is?
That will
May.
be the third, Tuesday in May,
Tuesday in
always.
May? Okay.
I don't
That's
remember
the day.
any literature in the past when they sent out their informational
They don't send out,
pamphlets
they don't send
that
out
had
the whole.
anything regarding our budget. Why
Those
would it?
little cards.
They
don't
send
have
the
it?
There
little
was
cards
nothing
out,
in there
yeah,
about
their
ours.
actual
Yeah.
budget is about 60 pages deep, it's an
Yeah,
enormous.
No, I
but-
know, but the
No, but
state
what- They
show
requires
the
them to
differences.
send, the state
Right,
requires school
but it's not going to
district.
require, our line item will be somewhere in those 60 pages, it's not gonna be on that card, because
Okay.
the voters aren't voting on it.
No, I know that,
Right.
but
No, I know,
I'm
so
just
it's
trying to, cause
Right.
the only place where it appears separate is on the property taxes. When you get your property taxes, you have school
Mhm.
district and you have
Library
library and fire district.
Right,
So I'm just thinking of that little card that they mail, it doesn't have a separate,
no, because.
maybe they
No,
should
because
think
it-
about
there's
doing that.
Well, no,
Nothing
because
Because
it has,
it'll
it's not part of the
confuse,
vote,
yeah.
Right.
and it would just make more confusion.
Yeah.
Martha's already confused, and putting it on there would just make it worse.
I think
Because,
so.
yeah, no, the only parts that are on that card are the parts the voters actually vote on.
Their
There's a whole bunch of
operating
state mandated stuff that you don't get a choice about, and so the parts that are flexible, that's what's, and there's only about 20 things on that card. There's hundreds of things in their budget. but
So
so
for
much.
our part, we should, on the
Our part
newsletter,
will just be one line in their budget somewhere.
Right.
And it's not even their budget, it's
But
just money they have to get for us from
but
the
to
state.
educate the public on our part, we'll use the newsletter to reiterate that fact.
Right, but we don't wanna beat it to death because
No,
it'll just be
but-
more confusing. Okay? Anything else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I wasn't able to follow your discussion about, the building committee, and how your committee is gonna proceed, who will make up the committee, what your timeline is. I
What are you
wasn't able
talking
to
about? The
follow
community.
your discussion. Can
We
you
haven't
reiterate?
decided on the community committee yet. We have three members of this board are on the new building committee, it's a
Okay.
committee within this board. We're the ones who deal with the architect and the construction manager and the lawyer. After we meet with the architect and the representatives from the Ramapo Catskill Library System, which should be in about 2 weeks, I guess, then we'll decide at our next library board meeting how we're gonna proceed, I guess, with the community advisory board. And it's not really, it would be an informal sort of thing,
So you haven't decided upon
No, ma'am, we haven't.
A format, in other words, for a building committee which would include public input?
right, we haven't
You
decided on
haven't
that yet,
decided on
no.
how you were actually going to
We
do
don't
that?
actually know enough yet about what the timeline is, what the parameters are, like what kind of input we could find that could be useful and who, do you know what I mean? There's too much we don't know yet to actually make up a community advisory committee.
The
Yeah,
architects,
just another comment, when are you're gonna be meeting with the chamber,
Yes,
is, soon?
the 20th, they have their chamber breakfast for the month.
Okay, cause I'm sure that question is gonna come up, from the chamber about how you're gonna proceed. So, I know that when you were out, asking for votes, you did say to the public that there would be time, for input.
Yes,
And you do have, a budget vote coming up.
yes.
So just a nudge in that regard, to not put off the public
We
input
weren't going to
part
put it
too
off, we
long?
have to, right, but that's why we have to talk to the architect first, so we're not wasting anyone's time.
Okay, yeah.
Including the committee's time and the public, whoever would be involved. I mean, we don't wanna have a whole bunch of people come together and give us input that's of no use to us or the architect,
Well, I
or it's too
wouldn't say
late.
that to the public, that their input is of no use to.
I didn't say the public's input was no
Okay.
use, I said I didn't wanna be preemptive and create a committee before we know what we're doing. That's what I said, and if we did that, then that would be of no use. Not that the public's, input is of no use. Before we even came up with the concept drawing, we had several meetings with the public to get their input on what the concept should even look like. So the, building that we put out to the vote was already, had an enormous amount of public input in it. So now we want more public input to fine tune it, but we don't know how much input we can have or when we can have it with the architect. So in order to know that before we involve the public, we need to talk to the architect. So that's what we're doing before the next board meeting. Once we know, everybody else will know too.
We did say last month that we would create a citizens advisory committee.
Yes.
So the only question at this point is, what kind of a timeline will we have for that group
To actually.
to work?
Yeah.
I'd say
I-
very
I-
short.
Well, the whole thing is very
It might
short,
very well
even,
be, they'll say March 15th, we have to have.
It might
have
be,
your-
yeah. It
something
could
like
be.
that. Right.
it could be. I mean, when we had the, community meetings to get input for the original design, it all happened right then and there that day. So I don't know, I mean, we want public input because the public is paying for it and it's their library. How much time, we're not gonna have months on end to discuss this, and we're not going to have hundreds of people
Right.
traipsing through here giving us their input. That wouldn't be productive, and, again, I don't know how long, we have and how much input we can actually, cause the footprint's
Yeah.
decided,
Well,
the
basically,
square
we're
footage
talking
decided, the
about
budget's
making some
decided.
tweaks. in
Yeah,
that.
it is mostly
We're not-
tweaks
we're not
at this
gonna do
point,
some
because the
fundamental thing.
input that we got to create the design in the first place happened all before the vote.
Right.
Right. So right now, it's more of a fine tuning the design than it is, you know, maybe we ought to have an aquarium.
I wonder what that fine tuning will be.
Yeah, I don't know.
I really do.
Well, we have to talk to them first, because, Robert and Stephen will have more library-oriented technical, input than we could expect, you know, I mean, not that,
You know, Mary, just one last comment.
yes, Bill.
I think it would be a wise investment to give a small group a period of time to.
Oh, I'm not saying it's
Fine-tune.
not, I'm
Yeah.
just saying
No,
that, doing it before we know what we're doing.
Right, I agree.
Yeah,
I
I think
agree.
we're talking a matter of 2 or 3 weeks
Yeah.
from now between, you know,
Yeah.
to set up a community. I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
that we don't do it, that
Okay.
wouldn't make any
No,
sense
I
at
think
all.
it would be a nice gesture. And
Absolutely.
I don't think it'll really undertake a lot of.
No, but I don't know what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's form a committee, okay, how many people? I don't know. What are we
Yeah.
gonna talk about? I don't know. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So until we talk to the architect, the answer to all of those questions is I don't know.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna wait until we talk to them, and then we'll know, and then we'll form it. Right?
Sounds good to me.
I don't know.
That's what you don't know either.
No, because we've had floor plans presented.
Right,
We've had a forum for getting input from people,
right.
and,
Right,
and
we
people
did.
have.
Oh, yeah, we got a
And
lot of
we've
input.
discussed some of
We
these
did.
things, and I don't
Mhm.
know what further will come of.
I don't know either. Well, I mean,
know,
I think
just-
some
I think
people
our
weren't invested
architect
in
is
it yet until
probably-
it was a real project.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. Some people were like, oh, this is nice. Now that it's a real project, then more people will be like, okay, now we'll take it seriously. So I think there was input that we can get now from a more serious perspective. Not that the people prior weren't serious, it was more,
I just wonder how how firm what what Paul has put together, the plans are. I would think
the
very
footprint
close.
is firm.
I would think
Yeah.
very close.
The
I
budget
think
is
it's,
firm.
I think it's you know, sort of, you know, moving this wall 20 feet so that this room is bigger or that room is smaller, or,
Right.
you know, again, the children's area
Upstairs.
upstairs
downstairs.
versus downstairs. I
That's a
think
big. That's a
That-
big
that's
decision.
huge.
That's major.
That's a
That's-
big-
Yeah,
that's-
I don't
and
think
that's
gonna
why-
happen.
I don't think
and
I
that's
don't
that's-
think it is
well-
either.
No.
Well,
Yeah.
hence why we will get input from the architect
The reason-
and everybody.
The reason the reason the drawing is always considered
We hired an
conceptual
expert.
is because, the reason it's considered conceptual is because I don't recall whether the very last version of the plans had the elevator machinery room.
No.
So that's got to be somewhere close to the elevator, probably.
Right.
All right. So that type of thing has got to be fleshed out in the real plans, in the final plans. So that's the kind of thing that's there's going to be tweaks, and with those tweaks, now some things might get pushed. A wall might get moved 1 foot one way, 1 foot another way. That's the type of thing we're talking about. So now, with that in mind, is there other things that we need to actually do? Like one of the things I know Stephen picked up in Nyack when they were doing it is there was no room for the carts, the book carts.
Storage, you know.
Yeah, storage in general, but even, you know, you have 5 book carts that you use to put books back on the shelves and other materials. Where do they go at night? Well, they go into the emergency exits. Not supposed to block the emergency exits, you know. So that's some of the things that they're going to bring up in you know what they've seen in other libraries and shortcomings that they've seen in other libraries. So.
Someone expressed concern to me that 50 parking spots was not enough.
It's a good start considering we have 6.
I agree, but if there's an event going on at maximum capacity in the meeting room plus a simultaneous program in like the children's area plus any additional patrons and employees, are 50 spots adequate?
Well, there's at least 50 more right behind
down
the
the
school.
road.
Okay.
But I think at one time, when this first began, they talked about 65 spots.
I was gonna say, I thought it was
68.
68
Yeah, we should-
spots, it's
That's a
not
question
50.
we can ask.
We
It's a good
we
question
focused on
because-
50 because that was a definitely attainable
Yeah.
layout. But yeah, I think the initial ones were more than
They-
60. And
Yeah.
Their initial presentation was 68 parking spaces,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
18
Which I think we should push
more.
for.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's a good
closer
point.
to
'Cause, how
100
many
is
parking
many.
spaces did the staff take?
Yeah, it's probably,
Or 10 right there?
let's say 8 to 10 right there.
8 to 10 right
Yeah.
there.
But this is all the kind of stuff that I'm sure Robert and Stephen will bring up, and the stuff that the public will bring up when we finally get to it. Yeah. So,
Okay.
anything else? Yes, no? No? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? At 8:37, 8:32? Thank you, it was Emily and Keith, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much.